You don't get one of the top quarterbacks and you're looking late, Matthew Stafford or Tony Romo. We rank Stafford better, should we? Because last year, Romo ends up always in the top 10, doesn't he?
I have them side by side, but I do like Stafford more. Stafford saw his fantasy points drop something like 70 from 2011 to 2012. He didn't play very well in the first half of the season, but a lot of that is bad luck. Calvin Johnson himself was tackled on the 1-yard line 6 times. How much would Matthew Stafford's numbers look better had he gotten those touchdowns? Now, granted, I don't think Stafford's going to run for 4 touchdowns every year, but he set a record for the most pass attempts in the history of the NFL in a single season, and I don't see that offense changing with Reggie Bush there. In fact, they're going to throw it to Reggie Bush more than the Dolphins did. As much as Romo has a bad rep and does play badly in big games and probably isn't valued highly enough as a fantasy quarterback, Stafford's the one with the top 5 upside.
Yeah, I agree with that because we've seen it before. I mean, the number I keep coming back to is 727. He threw it 727 times last year. That is a lot, Eric Carabell. And that was after he threw it 663 times the year before. I mean, they just throw. And I think they're going to continue. And in fact, those numbers are similar, like even 3 years ago when they had a mishmash of, the Drew Stantons and the Sean Hills of the world when Stafford was out for the year. So that is their offense in Detroit. They're going to keep
short
throwing.
Passing. It's short passing. I mean, right. Calvin Johnson gets it deep some, but this is mostly a short passing offense. It's the equivalent of the handoff.
Right, exactly. The Brandon Pettigrew and Joique Bell last year. Now it's going to be Reggie Bush. And boy, I like this team.
Listen, I like the addition of Reggie Bush, but the thing that concerns me is the stat that you gave. He set a NFL record for pass attempts and dropped 70 points. That's scary. And I really like the addition of Reggie Bush, but to ignore what Tony Romo has done, I think is a little bit foolish. And, I hate to say I'm on a Tony Romo bandwagon, but here I think I kind of have to be.
Feels dirty, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to get from Dez Bryant. I don't know what I'm going to get from Miles Austin. I know what I'm going to get from Jason Witten. And I think all that enough is for me to have a little bit more confidence in starting Tony Romo on a week-to-week basis.
Tony Romo is pretty underrated, guys. I mean, every year he puts up numbers. Fantasy playoffs are not in January, so we don't have to worry about that. I mean, real playoffs, but he puts up numbers every year. He gets underrated. He always finishes in the top 10.
Coming out of his bye, this is Tony Romo. So coming out of his bye last year, 16, 14, 19, 16, 16,
That's pretty
15,
good.
20. It's pretty good. But there's no upside. There's another huge upside. He had the crazy game against the Saints. You can't count on that. I think the biggest argument for Tony Romo that you guys haven't mentioned, which I'm surprised about, is the emergence of Dez Bryant. That it does seem to have finally clicked in for Dez Bryant.
Well, I mean, my problem with Stafford is he only had 20 touchdown passes. I mean, yes, Calvin Johnson should have more next year, but
and he ran in 4. Despite all that, despite the fact that Romo's great and Stafford had this horrible year and dropped 70 points, Tony Romo averaged 0.5 fantasy points a game more than Matthew Stafford. He had 8 fantasy points more. With all that, with as bad as Stafford was last year, and the only 20 touchdowns, he still was only 8 points less than Tony Romo, who had a pretty good year.
But we're saying we're giving all the negative as far as what happened with Stafford. We're not saying that Miles Austin went into a cocoon for a portion of last year. Right. He was non-existent. Miles Austin is a talented wide receiver.
Yes, he is.
Who has Dez Bryant type upside when he's playing fully healthy. Okay. Maybe that was a little bit of a stretch.
Mother over here.
Okay, he has top 10 wide receiver upside. If he's fast, if his hamstrings hold up, Miles Austin can be a very, very productive wide receiver. And if he gets that, and if he gets Dez Bryant, there's some significant upside to Tony Romo as well.
The other thing is, I think that Dallas wants to be a more balanced offense. I mean, part of the problem is the last 2 years is DeMarco Murray has missed significant portions of the season, and so they've had to throw. And frankly, their defense wasn't what they hoped it would be.
That's not changing.
I don't think so either, frankly. They think it is. They think Monty Kiffin is the secret. I'm not sure I buy that. But regardless, I think both guys are very solid. And I think the fact that we're having this argument of 2 guys that are ranked outside our top 10 shows how deep the quarterback position is, because both these guys are easily top 10 talents. It just shows you how deep quarterback is this year.